Welcome back, class. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you're well and healthy, that you are taking care of each other and your families. Again, thank you for all those who are diligently working on these opportunities each week. Again, they're not required. It's just one of those things I think it's important to continue your education. But again, thank you for all those who are working hard at this. Let's kind of jump into the iPad here and kind of look at our topics here today. So what you're looking at is we're in week 6, part 1, and we're looking at basic operations. Now, this seems kind of weird, but I think it's important, before the end of the year that we kind of look at, basic stuff where you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, decimals by hand in case, technology fails us, and fractions. And so those are going to be my topics for the next couple weeks. I think it's important. I know it seems weird, but it is important, doing some of this stuff by hand and not just always, reaching for your cell phone or your calculator. But, I know we have the luxuries, we have smart watches, we have other things, but I think it's still important. So let's kind of work through a couple of these. So the vocab words that you're seeing in front of you, obviously we have the word addition. That means the sum of. That means to add numbers, right? And subtraction means to find the difference between numbers. Multiplication is the product between numbers, and division is the quotient of numbers. So those are like the keywords. I want you to remember those. So sum, difference, product, and quotient. Those are the 4 that you can see there in front of you. Now, let's jump right in here. And we're going to just go in. I'm going to kind of walk you through this problem. I'll pull up the calculator once we're all done to confirm that these are the correct numbers, that I'm not typing in my calculator wrong. Sometimes I tend to do that. You probably saw that in the last video. I type too quick and I always type in wrong numbers. So this will guarantee. Now, I can estimate, right? I can look at this problem and go, okay, it's about 200, almost 200, and I'm adding 2. So I'm going to be in that 200 range. I'm not going to be, in the thousands. I'm not going to be in the 400s, right? I'm adding 2 plus 196. So it should be around 198 if you want to round it that way. Significant places. So that's what you have to do. Now, when you add decimals, especially like this, you have to line the decimals up. Now, that's something we haven't talked about since probably grade school, but 196, so if I write this down, so 196.8, and I'm going to add the 2.63. Now, when I do this, I need to line up the decimals so they're right on top of each other. Now, if you want, you can fill in zeros so that you can make the numbers the same length, that all the terms have something in columns. This method is actually called a column method. You're stacking the numbers up in columns so that every number is accounted for. And then what we're doing is we're just adding these numbers together. We're finding the sum. So we're going to add these straight down. Now, when you add numbers, you start on the farthest right side. We're going to start over here, and we're going to work our way this way as you add. If you have a 2-digit number, so let's say you add straight down, and it makes 10 or 12 or whatever, you have to carry the next number over to the next column as you go. Don't start on the left side, start on the right side of your numbers. So I'm going to start with a 0 plus 3. Well, that's 3. The next one, 8 plus 6. That's a 2-digit number. That's 14, right? So if I add that together and make 14, I have to put the 4 here, and the 1 is carrying over to the next column because it's a 2-digit number. So now I'm going to add 1 plus 6, which is 7, plus 2, which is 9. And the decimal went straight down. I didn't do anything with the decimal. It just comes straight down from where it was. And then 9 plus 0, and then 1 plus 0. And so my answer should be 199.43. Now, I was estimating about 200-ish. I was estimating about 198. We're in the ballpark. Right? We're not in this weird territory. Now, let's pull up the calculator and confirm that this is the answer. So, if I pull up my calculator here in front of you, so let's take a look at this here. Okay, so I'm going to type in my first number. This is the 196.8. 196.8. And I'm going to add to it. So I'm going to click the add button. I'm going to click 2.63. 2.63. Hit equal signs, 199.43, which is, you can see the number right on my screen. Now again, you're thinking, Ward, I can type that in my calculator faster than what you just did. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that, it is sometimes faster to type stuff in your calculator. I'm a realist, I understand that. But sometimes technology fails you. The cell phone runs out of batteries, the calculator runs out of batteries, the power goes out in the place of business, and you have to add and subtract numbers by hand to get your customers out of the store and keep them happy. It's a real life skill that you probably should have, especially if you're counting change. This is real life numbers, right? Now let's go to the next one. We're going to look at subtraction now. Okay, so we got a couple problems left. I got one of each type. All right, so we're looking at subtraction. Now, subtraction, I can't just put whatever number on the top. This one is kind of strict. You have to use the front number first, so I have to use the 8.001. That number has to go on the top. There is no rearranging like I did with addition. It's called commutative, where you can switch around and it's still the same. You can't do that here. I have to leave the numbers in the right order, so I'm going to have to put the 8 on the top, so 8.001. That number's on the top, and then I'm going to subtract the 3.4. Now, I do have to line up the decimals, so the decimals have to be right on top of each other, so I have to make sure of that. And then 3.4062. So you can definitely tell the bottom number is longer, so I can fill in like gaps, blanks, so that the numbers are exactly the same size. So it's, again, in column method. All the numbers are columned up. Again, this has to be the front number because it's in the front, and this, or it has to be the top number, I should say, and this has to be the bottom number. And I'm going to subtract. Now, when you subtract, you have to go top minus the bottom. If you can't do it, maybe the top number is too small. You have to borrow from the column in front of it. This can get tricky. You have to borrow. You can't take 0 minus 2. Like on this one, again, I'm starting on the right side, right? I'm starting over here and working my way this way. I can't go 0 minus 2. It's not possible. So I'm going to have to borrow. I'm going to borrow from the 1. So I'm going to get rid of all these extra marks here. So I'm going to borrow from the 1, making this a 0, and I'm going to make this number a 10. Because you have to put a 1 in front of it. I'm just borrowing 1 from that column in front of it. So 10 minus 2, that is 8. Next, 0 minus 6. I can't do that. So I have to try to look in the column in front of it. I can't even borrow there. I look for the column in front. Can't borrow there. The 8, I can borrow from the 8. I'm borrow from the 8, making it a 7. You're always borrowing a 1. Making the next column a 10. I'm going to borrow from that, making that a 9. Make this column a 10. And borrow from that, making this a 9. And then make that next column a 10. You have to keep borrowing until you can carry numbers over. You're just carrying one number to the next column. And if I have to borrow again, I make it 1 less. So now I'm going 10 minus 6. Well, that's 4. Next one, 9 minus 0. That's 9. That's nice. 9 minus 4. That's 5. That's nice. The decimal comes straight down. Perfect. You can see my little arrow there. And then 7 minus 3. Well, that's 4. And so my answer is going to be 4.5948. All right. That's the number we're expecting. Now let's go right to the calculator here so we can see if this... Okay, so jumping right in. Let's type these in my calculator here. All right, so what do we have? We have 8.001, and then we're going to subtract the 3.4062, hit enter, and 4.948. There you go. So it's one of those things that's nice that we can see right away, instant gratification that technology is agreeing with us. But it's one of those things, it's a good skill to have. You go back and try out some of these. Again, you can always check on the calculator and see if you're doing it right. But again, borrowing is probably the toughest thing we can do here. Now, let's go to the next one here. Okay? All right. Okay? All right. So, next column here. Or next problem, I should say, not column, but next problem. Click. There we go. Okay. This is problem 4. We have one more problem after this. So, or problem number 3, I should say. All right. So we're multiplying. We're multiplying decimals. You don't need to line up decimal places. When you multiply decimals, here's the beauty. You can get rid of all the decimal places. I'm just going to get rid of them. So like on this problem, I'm going to get rid of the decimal, and I don't really need the 0 in front of it. Don't need it. So I'm just going to multiply 19 by 45. And when you multiply numbers, this is how you write it. You just stack them on top of each other. They don't even have to be lined up. No lining up decimals, because I know the decimals in front of the 45. Don't need to do it. Just multiply like normal. If you've never done column multiplication before, I'm going to show you that. If you've done lattice, I'll show you that as well. Maybe you're not even familiar with those two terms. This is column method for multiplying. This is probably how your parents learned it in school. But again, how this works, I'm going to choose a different color here so you can see this. I'll do this 2 different ways, and we'll type it in the calculator and see if we're right. So you're going to, when we start here, we started on the right side and we work our way to the left. But we have to start on this number right here. We're starting with a 5. You're going to multiply it by the number on the top. So really this, you do have to know your multiplication facts. But the good news is you're only multiplying single digits. That's all you're doing. And if it ends up being a 2-digit number, that number will carry to the next column, kind of like when we're adding. So 5 times 9. Again, we're just multiplying here. This is a product, right? 5 times 9, I get 45. So 5, and I'm going to carry the 4 to the next column. Let me get rid of this. All right, carrying the 4 to the next column. Then we do the same math we did earlier. We're starting with a 5, but we're going to multiply it on the 1. So 5 times 1, I get 5. And you have to add the number that you carried. So 5 times 1 is 5. I add the 4 on the top, and I'm getting 9. Now, I don't have any more numbers. There's no more numbers up here, so I don't need to multiply this 5 to any more numbers. If I had more numbers, I'd just keep multiplying the 5 to all of them until I'm done, and carrying numbers if I need them. But I'm done. I'm done with the 5. So let me get rid of all that. I'm done with the 5. So let me get rid of all this. All right, hopefully this makes sense now. All right, so I'm done with that. This 5 is gone. Now what I'm doing is I'm moving on to the next number. Since I'm moving on to the next number, which is the 4, I have to skip over the 5 spot. This was the 5 spot. I have to skip it. So we have to put what we call a guard dog, or a gap filler. So I'm going to put the 0 there. And now I'm going to start with the 4 and do the same thing. Multiply it on to each number on the top row. And when I write it down, if it's a 2-digit number, it carries to the next column. So I'm going to go 4 times 9. Well, 4 times 9 is 36. So I have a 6, carry the 3 to the next one. And then I do the same thing. 4 times the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Add the 3 on the top that you carried, and I get 7. And there's no more numbers up here, so I don't need to multiply the 4 to any more numbers. There's nothing here. And now when you're done, the last step you do is you just add these things up. You add these 2 numbers up. That's how you multiply by column method. And if there was more, you just keep going. So 0 plus 5, I get 5. 9 plus 6, I get 15. Carry 1 to the next column. 7 plus 1, I get 8. So I'm getting 8, 5, and a 5. Now that's not my final answer. That's just what I get when I multiply these 2 numbers together. Now I have to fill in my decimal places. Because again, we ignored the decimal in the very beginning of this problem. You think back to it. We did ignore the decimals. Right? I got rid of it, literally. But now we have to throw it back in. So you look at each number. The decimal in this one, there's really no decimal. I mean, the decimal's in the back. It wasn't even printed. This one had 2 decimal places, right? I have to fill that in on my number that I have here. Start back here, fill in 2 decimal places. So my number is 8.55. If that front number had, this 19, if that had more decimals, I would add those in as well and just keep going and filling in zeros. So I'm expecting an answer of 8.55. Let's go to the calculator and then I'll show you a different way to multiply these. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so the numbers we have 19, and we're going to multiply by 0.45. That's the number. I'm typing the original number that I gave you. And I'm going to hit enter, and boom, 8.55. So that's how we multiply by column method. Now let's jump right back in. So we know we're right. We know we're correct. Now what we need to do is look at a different way of doing this. Because maybe that method to you is too much. Like it's just like, I don't understand. There's too many things going on there. Let's look at a different method of doing this. A different method is called lattice method. Maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't. Let's do lattice method. Lattice method is where you make a grid of numbers like this. So on the top, I'm going to put the number 19. Going down on the one side, I'm going to put the number 45. And just like I did before, I'm ignoring the decimals. So if there's any decimals, I ignore them. And if there's any zeros, just chop them off. Unless they're in the middle of the number, then you can't chop them off. But what you do is you draw, in each of these boxes, you draw a diagonal line. In each of these boxes. This is a 2 by 2 number, so it's 19 and 45. Those are 2 by 2s. And what I'm going to do is, as I multiply, so I'm going to multiply this number by the 4, and this will end up being a 2-digit number, and I'm going to fill in the 2-digit number in the 2 blanks that you see there. And I write it just like you normally see it. So this really requires that you just know how to multiply single numbers together, and you write down the answers as quick as you can. So 4 times 9, I get 36. So I write that number down. Now I'm going to do this number, the 1 and the 4, the column and the row, right? 4 times 1. Well, 4 times 1, if I get rid of this, 4 times 1 is the number 4, right? 4 times 1 is 4, so that I write that as a 2-digit number. That's 0, 4. That's the number 4, it's 0, 4. Now I'll keep going. The 5 and the 9, right? Because the column and the row, 5 and 9 make 45 if I multiply those. So I write that 2-digit number down right there. In the next spot, I have the 1 and 5. Well, 1 times 5 is 0, 5. So it's just knowing how to write down the 2-digit number. And now what you do to find my final answer, and I know this is going to seem goofy, you add up the numbers that are diagonal. And if there's any carries, you carry numbers over. So the first number is a 5. The next one is 6 plus 4 plus 5. That's 15. So I put a 5 and I carry a 1 to the next column over. 1, 3, and 4, and a 0 makes 8. And then I have a 0 out front. All right, because I'm just adding the numbers diagonally as I go. And then so this number is 0855, right? And then I just have to go back to the original problem, look how many decimal places there were. There were 2 decimal places. And I fill in my 2 decimal places, and it ends up being 8.55 again. So there's 2 different ways, lattice method and the normal column method. And it works every single time. Again, you can pick whatever one. Now, I know a lot of you will probably say, I'm just going to pick a calculator. Yeah, but I want you to learn how to do it by hand. That's the important thing. Or at least try. Okay, let's go to the last problem here. Last one. Absolute last problem. Okay, we're dividing. Now, the good news on this one, the number outside the house, the divisor, the number I'm dividing by, is a whole number. It's 38. If that was a decimal, so let's say it was, I'll make this up, let's say it was 3.8 on the outside. 98.382. Okay. If the number on the outside has a decimal, like mine does on this one I'm making up, you have to get rid of it. So move the decimal over, right? If you do that, and you write it as 38, right? And I got rid of that decimal, that maybe there was a decimal there. You have to get rid of a decimal on the inside. And you have to move it the same number of spots. So since I moved mine 1 spot on the outside, as you can see there, I have to move it 1 spot on the inside like this. 1 for 1. If you moved it 2 spots, you move the decimal on the inside 2 spots. Even if there is nothing there, you move it 2 spots and you fill in zeros. Now, on my original problem, I'm going to go back to the original one here. I do not have, now if I go back to this problem right here, there is no decimal on the outside. It's just 38. I don't need to move my decimal anywhere. So I'm going to write this bigger. So 38, the division sign, the house, it's called long division, by the way. 382. Okay, there's a way of doing this with lattice. I'm not going to show you that. But this is the way we're going to do it. So what we have to do is figure out how many times can 38 go into the numbers as I go across. Well, 38 cannot go into the number 9, so I have 0. 9 is too small. 38 can go into 98. So can it go in there once? Can it go in there twice? Can it go in there 3 times? That's what I'm checking. So 38, can it go in there, what, twice? 38, yeah. So 38 can go into 98 twice, and that would be 78, or 76. So 38 times 2, get 76. You subtract straight down, no matter what it is. So when I subtract straight down, I get a 2, and I get a 2, right? 8 minus 6 is 2, 9 minus 7 is 2. You bring down the next number. This decimal goes straight up. So the decimal's right there. So my answer already is 2 point something. So I bring down the 3. So now I got to figure out how many times can 38 go into 223. So I just try to figure out, okay, maybe 38 times 5. Too big. Let's see. 38 times 5. Actually, not too bad. 38 times 6. No, 2. So it's got to be 38 times 5. 38 times 5 is 190. It's 38 times 5. Okay, so I'm going to subtract straight down again. So 3 minus 0. The 2 I can't do, so I'm going to make this a 1. This is now a 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 1 minus 1, can't, that makes 0, so I'm up to 33 here. Bring down the next number, which is 8. So I'm now at 338. So I try to figure out how many times can 38 go into 338. Maybe 9 times, let's say. 38 times 9. 342, that's too big. 38 times 8. 304. Okay, so 38 times 8 is 304. And I'm going to subtract straight down. So 8 minus 4 is 4. 3 minus 0 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. Bring down the next number, which is 2. 38 can go into 342. Let's see. That's exactly 9 times. 38 times 9 is exactly 342. I did that one earlier. So I subtract to get 0. This is what we want to have happen. When you divide, you want to get a remainder of 0 on my problem. And so this answer on the top is exactly the problem we're looking for, right? This is the answer for my problem. It's 2.589. That's how you do long division, right? It's kind of like multiplication. Multiplication, you multiply and you add. On division, you figure out what to multiply and then you subtract. That's the only difference with division. So let's type it in my calculator. So let's do my calculator, and let's type in my numbers. So here's what we have. We have in the house, we have the 98. You always have to type the number in the house first. So 98.382. And I'm going to divide by 38. 2.589. There you go, just the number that we had here. Okay, I know this is a lot, sorry. It's one of those things I think it's important you guys get to see this. But again, thank you for all those who are, actively doing these activities each week. I know this week was kind of tough with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. We're going to continue this route. We're going to try to do more activities this week with this, and then next week we'll do some fractions. I think it's kind of important we get to see this. It's one of those life skills you probably should know how to do, especially on a work site. You have to do stuff like pencil and paper, so you actually know what you're talking about. You know what to do, and you can do it quickly. So it's kind of out of practice nowadays. We have so much technology. People just type it in cell phones, but it's kind of nice to know what to do by hand. Especially like when you saw the last video I did with some of the problems. I type in stuff too fast, and sometimes I get wrong answers. So it's nice to do it by hand to double check things. But again, thank you for all those that are doing these activities each week. Appreciate it. I miss you guys. Take care of each other and stay healthy and stay safe. Bye.